Hello, everyone at Summit Station. This is Jennifer Mercer. Can you hear us? Oh, there you are. We can see you on the screen behind us. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. Can you see the whole room?
We can see them on the front.
We can see ourselves. Yeah, that's
okay,
it.
You see yourselves. I can see them here. Good. Okay. Okay, well, you're in a small auditorium, maybe 50 people you're speaking to. And we want to start. Jan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Summit Camp. I'm Jan Roper-Couder. I'm the director of the French Polar Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're not in an undue hour and that it's not, we are not asking too much of you to be with us today, but it's really appreciated.
Okay, and for me, it's really great to see you guys on the screen. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tom Pence. I'm the Summit Site Supervisor.
I'm Greg Vito. I'm one of the science technicians.
I'm Rachel Young, also one of the science technicians.
Wonderful. And I will ask some questions. As you know, I've spent some time, not as much time as you guys, but I've been there, so I know which building you're in. Can you describe how many people are on station right now, and tell us about the space that you're in, that you're calling from?
Yeah, definitely. So we currently have 5 people on station. The other 2 people who aren't present are our 2 mechanics. And we are calling in from the mobile science facility where a lot of our research is done. And this is Rachel's domain.
Great. And I know that we just had a successful turnover of the crew in the last couple of weeks. It took you quite a long time to get there because of weather in Iceland and en route to Greenland. So I know you spent a lot of time waiting to get there. So with that in mind, you are this year's Summit Winter Over crew, and you will be there until when?
We'll be here until mid-February. And yeah, we'll see how that actually looks when February comes around. Delays are fairly common.
Yes. Thank you. All right, do you want to describe the science there in the mobile science facility, the Ice Caps project? Maybe just a very short 1-minute description. We are, as you know, we're running late, so we're going to ask you to describe that. Maybe talk a little bit about your life there on station. And I understand you might be playing a video for us of what it looks like outside right now. Is that true?
Yeah, sure.
So the video, it's pretty dark out currently.
Okay.
So we can go outside and show you what's out there, but it's you won't be able to see too much.
That's fine. We'll do that at the end. Okay.
Right.
So let's hear about ice caps.
Sure. So here at the mobile science facility, it's an ongoing project through Ice Caps. A lot of it is looking at atmospheric and meteorological data, specifically clouds. So we want to see how clouds sort of affect the ecosystem and the environment. So we have multiple different instrumentation that can get, cloud heights, thicknesses, particle types. And we want to see how that affects not only Greenland and Summit Station, but the northern hemisphere.
Wonderful. Thank you. Before we go to the view of the outside, is there anything else you want to share? Talk about life on station.
Yeah, life on station is very interesting. The weather has been really fun to observe, and we're currently losing about 10 minutes of sunlight a day, and later this month we will be in complete darkness. I believe that will be November 14th, and it'll just be, we'll have some twilight, but it'll be dark all day until sometime in January.
Great. Do you have questions, Jan?
I just wanted to know if, and I'm not supposed to do that because I've been told we have to run quickly, but I'm addressing to the audience now. Is there anyone who has a question for Summit Camp in Greenland? That's always the moment where everybody got silence in the room.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Sorry, I was addressing the audience to ask if they had a question for you. Maybe.
A question for you?
No, we were asking here in the audience if they have any questions for you all at Summit Camp. I think there's a question coming. Stand by.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you very much. I would like to know the extent to which you are cooperating, collaborating, discussing with indigenous people on the fields, and how much do they bring to, how much indigenous knowledge brings to your scientific research. Thank you very much.
So I can help address that, but first I'm going to let the crew at Summit Station talk about the location of Summit Camp in relation to the rest of Greenland and the communities, and then I'll follow up and talk about how we are overall working with the local communities in Greenland. Go ahead, Summit. Did you hear the question?
I'm sorry. Our audio is getting a little wonky, and I didn't quite catch that.
Okay. So maybe if the bandwidth is becoming a problem, I'll have them show you the outside, and then I will answer your question. Go ahead and show us the outside, and then we'll end the live session after that.
Sure. Just a moment. Yes, please.
Oh, he's very dark.
Okay.
So
that is our outside.
Yes. Can you see any lights from the big house or the garage? There's some light in the distance. Okay. So there you have it. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll wrap this up. And I want to thank all three of you very, very, very much for joining us live here at the One Planet Polar Summit. I very much appreciate it. So that's from me, as well as all of my colleagues here. Have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Have a good day, Summit Station. Thank you. Okay, to answer your question, so Summit Station is at the center of the Greenland ice sheet. All of the 56,000 Greenlanders live in the coastal regions. And interestingly, they don't go onto the ice sheet very much. It's not something that's part of the culture. They do a little bit, but mostly they work on the sea ice, travel, hunt, back and forth. And I believe it's even a cultural, like a superstition. It's bad luck to go onto the ice sheet. So for Summit Station in particular, we don't have a lot of co-production and collaboration on the science there, but we have had Greenland ministers and people from the Greenland Research Council, Greenland research officials come to Summit and visit Summit. We're working, and we also have Greenlandic students through the JSEP program, which is the Joint Science Education Program. It's a US-Danish Greenland program where we have every summer Greenland high school students come and learn how to do science at Summit Station. So there is some collaboration there. We have a lot more co-development and co-production of research questions in the coastal areas where we're working. So that's just one location. We have, a significant amount of work with the local research community, which is in Nuuk, to establish research projects. Yeah.
Thank you, Summit Camp. Thank you, Jenny, for all these introductory to our session. While the team is preparing the slides, I would like to just welcome my co-moderators. So, as I said before, I'm Yann Ropercoudet. I'm the director of the French Polar Institute. Next to me is Jennifer. So, Jennifer, please go on with all your titles.
Okay. So I'm Jennifer Mercer. I'm the head of Arctic Sciences at the U.S. National Science Foundation. In this session, I'm also here in the role of the chairwoman of FARA, which is the Forum of Arctic Research Operators, and I'll give you an introduction to that in a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Jan. Hello, everyone. My name is Antonio Quesada. I am the executive director of Spanish Polar Committee, and here I am wearing the hat of COMAP chair. COMAP is the Council of Managers for National Antarctic Programs.
And online, speak to me, thank you. And online we have also Michel Hogan-Finmore, who is the executive secretary of COMAP, so where Antonio just head. And unfortunately, she was supposed to be able to interact with us, but apparently the system doesn't allow for that, so she's only listening, but I'm sure she's with us. And I will introduce our other fellow sitters at the table a bit later. But if we can start with the slides, please, would be good to give an introduction. please.
They're on the.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No.
We don't see them. Yeah. Okay. All good. So did I miss? Okay. Yes. There was the name. Perfect. So, okay, just setting the scenes, polar regions, similarities and differences, research facility, facilitators of research, critical questions for the roundtable, and that's where our fellow sitters will introduce themselves. So, oops, it's not moving. Yeah, okay. So the similarities, it will be super brief. Both regions are cold, both are the geographic ends of the Earth, both play a key role in the global climate system. And that's where the similarities end. Then you have the differences. And the differences are quite obvious also for people who know, but it's always good to state the obvious. So human population in the Arctic, with the governance, with the Arctic Council, which is a kind of body, international body that helps working in these kind of places. But there's no international treaty or regime that is really established. The geography also, an ocean surrounded by land. The biology is very diverse, lots of highest land predators, and the polar bear is the classical example. And also, very important, the main economic activity, which is listed here with mining, petroleum, fishing, etc. When you go to the Antarctic, the human population is 12,000 expeditioners. So already quite a significant difference with the Arctic. The governance, we have the National Antarctic Treaty System, which was established in 1959, and which gives the continent for peace and science. The geography, opposite, a land surrounded by an ocean and covered with ice. So no megaflora or fauna, no large predator. And the main economic activity is actually occurring in the, around the continent, in the sea, with the fishing. Mining is banned, and tourism is an increasing economic activity too. So, facilities. Why did we have a session on operators? Why did we decide to be here today in front of you? It's because when you have one scientist in the field, in Antarctica, we have calculated that on average you have 9 operators behind that facilitate this venue. So that gives you an idea of why operators, while always in the back, while always in the dark, are very important for science. They're actually not, it's not possible to separate science and operators. The best example is both Jenny, well actually everybody on this table was a scientist at one stage. So facilitators of research and research facilitators. The Antarctic facilities, I won't go very quickly because Antonio is going to give an overview of that. But you can see basically here a map of the stations and a map also of the countries that are spread all around the Antarctic, with a high concentration, of course, in the Antarctic Peninsula on the left of the map of the continent, which has, I would say, easier access because it's projecting at lower latitudes compared to the other side, which is a bit more scarce and desert in terms of stations. And you can see that there are not that many stations in the middle, so even less when you count them that are operated all years. So that's also a big difference. When you go to the Arctic facilities, we have no single map that actually summarize all the existing facilities. What we have, though, is different type of map. Here, some examples that summarize some type of infrastructure, but maybe Jennifer is going to speak a bit more about that. And with this, because I've been told to speak fast, because we are late, I'm going to hand over to Antonio.
Thank you very much, Jan. I think that today I have to talk to you about the relevance of international collaboration. Talking about international collaboration to this audience is complicated because you are diplomats, you are, I don't have the slides?
Yeah, they're on. You can move.
Okay. This is too much? No, but this is not me.
Oh,
okay, they have changed. Okay.
That's you.
Sorry. Well, this is not my lettering. My wording was much better than this. Anyway, just to talk to you about international collaboration is not easy because, in fact, you already know about the relevance of international collaboration. Most of you in the audience are polar scientists. You are diplomats. That everyone knows that in the research in the polar areas really requires collaboration. So there's no other way. In fact, talking about that in Antarctica is crucial because we are following a mandate. The mandate of the Antarctic Treaty is already working for 65 years, and it works. So this is something that we have to do. In any case, I will try to explain you a little bit more about that. We know that real crucial activities in the, after the IPCC report, the SROC report 2019, shows two stark messages. The first one is the world's oceans and cryosphere is taking up most of our surplus of CO2 and heat. But this is not for free. It will have consequences. We are already seeing the consequences in those ecosystems. And also, those consequences will have a problem for the humanity. The Earth, as a planet, will suffer some modifications, but mainly the human activities will be really under problems. We all know also that there are two main ice caps. We have other smaller ones, but the two main ice caps are Greenland and Antarctica, and we know that they cover about 10% of the land surface. So this is something important. We have been listening to many researchers and many people in these sessions, previous sessions, about remote sensing. We have seen that this is very important. It is crucial to work on remote sensing. Just to see these kind of maps, this is fantastic figures that we can see how everything evolves, how everything changed. But the real problem is that we need to go there. We need to understand the real situation and to understand how everything changes. We need to go there. We need to have our hands cold, and we need to get Jan is telling me that I should go fast, so I will go fast. In any case, what we need is to go there. There is no other way, because if we really want to explain everything, we need to stay there. And this is why COMAP comes. COMAP, as I told you before, is the Council of Managers for National Antarctic Programs, and this is an association of, at the moment, 33 countries, the operations or the operators of 33 countries, the national programs of 33 countries. Those are the countries that they are signing the Antarctic Treaty, and they are signing also the Madrid Protocol, the conservation, nature conservation in Antarctica. So these are most of the countries. We also have 4 other observers countries, and we are practically virtually, we are covering all the activity in the continent, in Antarctica, and on the oceans. So, in fact, we have many countries that they have very large programs with thousands of or hundreds of people moving every year. We have small programs with only few people, no assets, but active scientifically. And in this realm, in COMAP, everything counts. As we have heard before, every 1/10 of a degree counts. In here, every single program counts, because all that has to be done in collaboration. We are supposed to be the operators and technical group of people working on Antarctica, but in fact we go beyond that, because we are facilitating science, we are giving the possibility for outreach, better outreach, and we are also marking other milestones for the global community. And all of that is in the framework of collaboration. So all the countries have decided to work together. And we all know, because there is no single country, even the largest and the most powerful one, that can work alone. So we have to work all together and counting between large and small programs. Sorry, I think that I forgot this one. So we are here, we are most of the countries, we are working on the Antarctica, and we are working on collaboration. So normally we are distributed in regional groups, working groups, because Antarctica is very large. It's 20 plus times the size of France. So it's a huge continent, and there are a lot of different diverse climate activities, programs. So we cannot compare what is happening in the plateau in terms of operations, 3,000 meters above sea level, what we have in the coastal area, because it's different approach. So we are facilitating the work in the frame of neighbors. So we are working with our friends, with our neighbors, and this is the best way of facilitating the work, because one of the roles of COMAP is to make a frame for international collaboration, and this is what we do. So those regional collaboration, the regional networks are working very well. Some of them are very populated. For instance, the peninsula, the Antarctic Peninsula region, we are covering 20 plus members. We are many countries. We have many stations. In Antarctica, we are running nowadays about 68 stations. Some of them are summer only, and some others are year-round, and many, many vessels. So this is a compendium of activities. And we are also having expert groups. Those expert groups are very important because they are going towards the most important ad hoc themes. For instance, decarbonization of the activities. We also have another on facilitation of science. We have another working on medicine and human well-being in Antarctica. So we have a number of different groups, and they are very important because they are just moving all the activity all along the year, And with that, I think that is more or less everything that I wanted to say. But I am posing some questions for the audience and also for our moderators. And those questions are, the first one is, I don't know, we cannot see there. Unfortunately, it has disappeared. But the first one, talking about expertise, is what? No, this is the second one. Okay, the first one is very easy. We are in need of keeping people running, keeping our technicians, our logistical people running. Because if we check the webpage of, for instance, of IPF, the French Polar Institute, we found that they say, nous recrutons. It means that they are hiring people because we need people, and we need to be able of keeping the people engaged and for long term. And this is my first question to the audience and to our panelists. How can we get them more time with us? Because many times the polar activities are like a ramp. You start there, for instance, if you are military, you go to Antarctica, and it's an immediate promotion to another position. And this is a pity because we lose that expertise. The same happens in the civilians. So we need to be able of keeping everything running. And my second question is, we really need to lead the example in terms of decarbonization. We need to follow the optimization of the activities. In my previous talk this morning, I was talking about the bartering system that we are promoting in Antarctica. And the idea is just to exchange favors, just to not to change money, not to charge for the other's activity, but to exchange favors. In that way, at the end of the day, we will have a balanced system. But my question for the panelists is, do we want really to promote that kind of collaboration? Do we really want to be able of not building a new vessel, multi-million vessel, with a $150,000 a day activity? Or can we share that? Can we have other vessels in between, sharing the activity or not? Or we cannot? And finally, my last question, and my last slide, don't worry, I'm finishing now, is about the spirit of the Antarctic Treaty, the collaboration of the Antarctic Treaty. So we really need to do the collaboration because it's a mandate. This is by law. So if we are signatories, we have to do it. There's no doubt. But the question is, the spirit of the Antarctic Treaty says this is a continent devoted to peace and science. COMAP is a technical, practical, and non-political institution. So we are non-political. We don't care about geostrategy, geopolitics. We don't care. This is not our task, and we cannot. My question to the panelists is, are we sure that we still want to keep this neutral, politically neutral perspective? How can we do it? We are doing in COMAP, but can we improve it? And with this, I finish. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, in the last session, Antonio had to follow me, so it's only fair that I follow him in this one. I'm going to give you a quick overview of FARO, which is the Forum of Arctic Research Operators. It is the northern counterpart to COMAP that you just heard about. And since I can't see the slides very well, you'll see me leaning forward here. But FARO, so as you know, the Arctic is made up of 8 nations. There is an Arctic Council, so therefore FARO does not have the same leverage as COMAP. It's really just a platform, I shouldn't say just, but it is a platform for aligning access and infrastructure efforts in the Arctic. It's a country member organization that was formed in 1998. And it has approximately 20 member nations. I say that because it's always in flux a little bit. We have some new countries that want to become members. We have, recently we had a country drop out, and we actually have paused Russia's membership in FARO following the Arctic Council and the invasion of Ukraine. Each nation has a national representative entity that should be a major operational type of entity. So in the US, the National Science Foundation is the entity, and then each of those entities has a person that serves as the point of contact for FARO. We are operated by an executive committee with a chair and a secretariat. We do have several objectives in missions, and that's to promote networking and dialogue, exchanging information, particularly on best practices, but also on availability of resources and plans for research and encouraging collaboration and cooperation. We aim to optimize logistics, so we're talking a lot about, you heard Antonio talk about how do we best do this, and we have these same discussions in the Arctic. And I'm not going to read the whole slide to you, so I'll just go on here. Maybe. There we go. It's exciting. I get to announce that we just released our 5-year strategic plan. It should be online on the FARO website. If it's not, it will be within just a few days. But it has 3 priority areas. Again, you can look this up. This has been something that's been in the works for well over a year, maybe 2 years now. So we're very excited to have a strategic plan with these 3 priority areas that you can see there, which is knowledge sharing between operators, networking, and access to facilities. I think there was an extra slide that I wanted to put in there, and maybe it didn't make it into the slide deck, which is okay, but it was showing the all of the national members, all of the nations that are members of FARO. So I will just say that it is made up, obviously, of the 8 Arctic nations, but any other national operator nation that operates in the Arctic has access to membership in FARO. So we have a full suite of Asian countries, European countries, South American countries, et cetera. Some partnerships and projects that are key to us. We just signed a new 10-year MOU with IASC. We extended it from 5 years to 10 years for this round so that it covers the ICARP process as well as the next IPY. We also partner closely with these other projects like Interact and the newly funded Polar In project, which Nicole can tell you more about, and she's out there in the audience. But I do have a couple of slides here which show you what this Polar In is. It's the Polar Research Infrastructure Network. It's very exciting and has a lot of, facilitates access to, or is integration and access to 64 research infrastructures in the slide there on the right. And key elements of our recent work, we've been working with, I don't know if this is what I put in here, smaller operational region for Arctic field, oh, yes, because we've lost research access to nearly half of the Arctic, we've been working together to talk about how to continue to do Arctic research and fully understand the changes there with a smaller operational area of access. Developing fair and safe environments for field operations. We had a lively discussion at our last annual meeting about that, which was really well received and really interesting. We have been focusing on reducing the environmental impact of fieldwork, and of course, increasing access. And that was something else in our last annual meeting that was really fantastic. Each of the countries talked about what they had for availability and opportunities for international access. Okay, and then this is just some information there. You can find us online. And there you go.
Thank you both for trying to get us back on time. So basically, sorry for the slides. I don't know what happened, but it seems like the format of what I sent did not make it to the upper desk there. Anyway, what we want to do now is to open the table to our panelists. As you see, we have a full range of expertise here and country around the table. I will ask them every time they take the floor to introduce themselves. Like this, we don't do a round table first, but everybody goes and say, okay, I'm Carlo, I'm Emma, I'm Jane, and so on. But what we did is to try to steer a bit the debate. We've put some questions. Antonio added some more, but I think there is a few questions we want to flash like this, and maybe I will ask our panelists if they want to react on the first one here, which is how, it's not really a question, it's just like, you know, operations and logistics are necessary, are vitals. There is no delivery of science without the operators behind. The two go hand in hand. So how do you reflect on that, and how do you see the evolution of our job, basically, with this new geopolitical frame in which we are moving? Maybe we can start, I mean, I don't want to put you on the stage if you don't want. You're happy with that?
Happy.
Go for it, Emma.
Thank you. I'm Emma Campbell. I'm the new head of the Australian Antarctic program, and we run the logistics and the science in one organisation. And so this is a really interesting question for us. Australia's been going to Antarctica since 1912 with Mawson's first expedition, and we've come a long way, I think, in safety, in operations, and in amazing science in that time. With our operations really improving. I think one of the things reflecting on for this station is the intersect between safe and effective operations in science, and it's certainly a tension for me in the Antarctic program in Australia as we're looking at budget pressures, and I've certainly had people say, why are we spending on operations and we should be putting all that money into science? And I think that's a false dichotomy that we sometimes see. We know that Antarctica is a really harsh and dangerous place, and we have real obligations to keep our people safe and so that they can come home to their families at the end of the day, and we haven't always been successful at that over the last 100 years, but we really need to do everything we can in the power for that. So a couple of examples about how we support science through safety in design and efficiency in design. When we designed the Noina, it's safety was really front and center. There's a range of systems on the Noina, our new icebreaker, to reduce manual handling, to avoid trip hazards. Containerized science labs on the ship are connected to fire and gas safety systems. So when scientists are working in the labs on the ship, that they have access to that important safety systems. We're doing an ice drilling project on the Denman Glacier to look at the important effects of climate change on that glacier. That involves really specialized drill technology. And we've been working for several years to do that design with support from the British Antarctic program, making sure the drill bits are appropriate, safe, harnessed safely. That included testing it in Kingston and then moving to Casey. And again, we'll deploy it this month in Anger. One of the things that's really we heard earlier in this morning's session about the climate impacts and melting ice on stations in the Arctic. I think that's a really interesting operational challenge for us. We're certainly seeing that play on our sub-Antarctic station at Macquarie Island, where increased storm surges and sea level rise are eroding the foundations that our stations are sitting on. So that is a real urgent priority for us, and I can see that continuing to happen in Antarctica as we have different weather patterns, sea ice. I think I was talking to earlier, I think to you, Jan, about sea ice and how we land to resupply our stations, and so the impacts of climate change are really affecting our operations with flow-on impact to science, and that's a real challenge for all of us. And then probably the final point I'd want to make is just the cultural safety that we need to look at in our stations. Australia earlier this year had a significant review that found some long-standing and unacceptable behaviours around bullying, harassment, sexual harassment on our stations, and so how we make the stations safe for our people. And I think that goes to the question about how we get people to join our stations and how we deliver a value proposition as employers so that people want to come, that they're safe when they're in Antarctica. I think these are really important elements, and we're looking at that through training, through selection, through suitability of the stations, quiet rooms, places to go away on the stations, and those are key elements, again, of our operations that are keeping people safe, increasing their experience of their time in Antarctica, and hopefully make them want to come back to work and say that it's a great place to work so that they can tell their family and friends, and I think that's really important. Thanks.
Carlo?
Yep. Thank you, Jan. I'm Carlo Barbante. I'm director of the Institute of Polar Sciences of the National Research Council of Italy. Well, the situation in how we run stations in Italy is slightly different. We have two main polar programs, one for the south, the National Polar Antarctic Research, and one for the north. And the CNR actually run the station and in Ny-Ålesund, while in the Antarctica we have two stations, Mario Zucchelli, which is on the coast, on the Ross Sea, in the front of the largest marine protected area, and Concordia, which is an example of shared infrastructure with France. So we are running it since 2006, together with within the National Polar for Antarctic Research. We bring together the ENEA, which is the National Agency for New Technology that run most of the logistic, and then also, I would say, the National Institute of Ocean and Geophysics and CNR, when we are all running the National Antarctic Program research. I'm mostly focused on Concordia Station, which I think is a great example of collaboration, bilateral collaboration, the only international station in Antarctica and especially in the Antarctic Plateau, where we have seen a lot of great project going on in the space, in the glaciology, in the paleoclimatic reconstruction, and so on. And other things are popping up in Concordia. Emma mentioned the Australian project. I mean, there is a Million-Year Ice Core project, which is literally next door to the European camp. So we are collaborating in many aspects, especially for the safety, for sharing facilities like the ski, the runway, for the safety operation in the field. So I think that cooperation and collaboration with partners, including indigenous in the Arctic, of course, is an important thing. And I think we put in the recent years, we also put in the field a lot of signals that goes with these sharing infrastructures, especially for Interact in the Arctic, ARISE, which just is going over in a few months, and Polaring, which is a new example of how we can share infrastructure. Opening infrastructure to everybody, including young people with bright ideas that can put in and work in many different stations. So and I think that we have to go in that direction. Antonio just mentioned, do we need another icebreaker? I say yes, but not more than that, probably. And we have to share it. We saw this morning the long line of vessels in, I don't remember if it was Ushuaia, Punta Alegre, refilling. Well, I think that the better use of our infrastructure is mandatory. I'm speaking for the Italian perspective. We were almost alone in Baia Terranova because we had the Gondwana station, that was a little German station up to a few years ago. Then the Yambogo station was built, and we have a very good collaboration with our Korean colleagues. Now we have other neighbor, the Chinese station is popping up. Well, I think is where we have to collaborate. I mean, with the Korean, with the Chinese, we have to put the diplomacy at work because we need to get out the best out of collaboration and sharing infrastructures.
Thank you, Carlo. Jane, a few words?
Thank you. I'm Jane Francis. I'm Director of the British Antarctic Survey. So our mission, which is defined also with the very close association with our Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, is to do world-class science and to support UK science across the whole country in Antarctica and also one of our stations in the Arctic. So we have 5 stations in Antarctica, and we have a large icebreaker, a new one, looks very similar to Naina and some of the others around the world now. I think you asked about how we retain staff, especially technical staff. So the British Antarctic Survey, we have this problem. We have whole groups of people with special capabilities of ice core drilling, hot water drilling, and they are on contract to Korea, to Australia, to the US. Keeping their contracts going is a challenge, and I think that's a challenge for all of us in this current economic state. So I don't have an answer particularly for that. We keep petitioning. One thing that we are doing, though, to retain staff in our stations is to modernise them, to make them a better place to be. So we have a very tough agenda for net zero. The Research Council wants us net zero by 2030 or 2040. 2030 is a step. How on earth do you make a huge icebreaker net zero? So it's a challenge. So this year, the icebreaker, Sir David Attenborough, we call it SDA in short, is going to Antarctica full of biofuels, hydrogenated vegetable oil, or chip fat as I call it. But, and this is, I think, only an interim. Biofuels are only interim because they're also not necessarily the right fuel to really end up with. But I'm sure that we will be looking at as many kind of different fuels, better fuels, that we can as we go to Antarctica, although the big issue is resupply once you get into the Southern Hemisphere, and that is a big challenge. So if anybody in Chile, Argentina or South Africa would like to become a major port for ammonia or hydrogen, we would really, really welcome that. Our stations are being rebuilt to modernise because I think, like many Antarctic organisations, we have a lot of 70s, 80s buildings where the heat comes out of the generator and goes straight up through a wooden roof and it causes warming of the peninsula. But we need to change all that. So we are rebuilding a large part of Rothera, our main station, knocking down a lot of old buildings, building one multi-purpose building which is full of renewable energy issues. And we have a big renewable energy project to try and ensure that we don't keep using just high carbon fuel. That's a real challenge in Antarctica. Everybody thinks it will be easy because there's no regulations and we've got plenty of wind. So we can use solar panels for 6 months of the year, 7 months of the year probably in Rothera, but certainly not in the winter when it's dark all the time. Wind is a bit of a challenge because it's either calm or ferocious, and there are a large number of wind turbines in Antarctica which are broken because the wind is too strong. We also have a problem, we have a lot of birds around Rothera, and so how do you cope with a lot of birds in the area? So we're looking at a whole range of different types of renewable energy to make our footprint as low as possible. And for the ship, so we are investing in hugely, it's a big project called Spend to Save. So we're spending the Research Council's money in order to save our own, which is the right way around. So we have quite a lot of projects to really get a lot of autonomous vehicles. So the idea is that normally a ship in Antarctica goes like this, doesn't it? It has a track, it does lots of data collecting, and it's very, very, very expensive in fuel, especially in the fuel costs these days. So the idea is that the ship is what we call a mothership. It goes from there to there, and then we send out as many autonomous vehicles as we can. So we are really stocking up on marine autonomous vehicles, marine robots, gliders, small little things called sailboys, like small yachts that run off GPS. I can run it from my office on my iPhone and send it off with GPS, and it's got echo sounders and some instruments on there powered by solar power, and then it's driven by wind, and we'll have a fleet of those. We have drones of every size, so we have small drones with very expensive body, but then polystyrene wings that cost about £2, and you literally launch it by throwing it, but it saved huge amounts of time counting penguins and things like that. Then we have a big problem about what do we do with all this data that we're collecting. So we have a big project to work, hopefully, with a satellite company to try and have a better polar satellite and satellite receiver stations so that we can send back all this science data that we're collecting, which at the moment we can't. We collect masses of data. You either have to go back and get a chip, or you send it back and it's destroyed. So, and I think once we've got some of those systems in place, it's a lot that we can share. So I'll finish there.
If I can jump in, I think that Jane opened a very interesting point, is the innovation. I think that we are changing paradigms in the Antarctic, or our polar research, I would say, that now is plenty of room for innovation, for engineering and for new activities, for everything. It's not only decarbonization, there's many, many things that require adaptation to the new melting ice, melting permafrost, windows, even glass technology has to be changed as well. So there are many things that should be on the table for the programs. So we are changing, I would say, from science to technology. So I think that this is a new paradigm. Thank you.
And I think that the new satellite constellation we have for communication at low cost now is really opening again the door for new system, and again the remote sensing operation, and also the low cost sensors, because now we have a lot of low cost sensors for monitoring this region, and coupled with the capability of transmitting data at low cost, and just that was something really not affordable a few years ago, would make the real difference in the near future. Also shortening the budget that we all are experiencing.
Totally agree with that, and I will pass you the word. I just wanted to add on that, because this is something, we always think about putting money or asking for money to decarbonize the station, but there is all the data sharing things behind that requires also lots of money, lots of investments, and lots of people to actually manage this data and to make them available in a curated way and a usable way. And this is part also of our commitment, if we want to decrease the impact we have on the polar regions, is to make all the data existing already available to people who can maybe use them, so that we don't have to go back again and take some more data. Of course, there are always a need for new data. We all know that as scientists, but there is maybe a way to optimize that. And just before giving you the word, I was thinking about something else you said. We are all making our station more welcoming to people so that we can retain them. And you should not see that only probably as comfort. We are not just making the station comfortable. We are making them, as Emma said, safer, but we are also making them in a way more sustainable, and that attracts also young people, because that's a concern which is now deeply grounded in all the people. And if you make a station which gives you the impression that you're really trying to minimize the impact on the environment, then that's something which is attractive. Jane, sorry.
Yes, I completely agree with all those things. I think technology is the key to our future, but we have 2 more speakers, right? Yes?
Yes.
So maybe we should keep going out of respect for them.
Good, thanks. My name is David Hick. I'm the Chief Scientist and Executive Director of Polar Knowledge Canada, which is the federal agency that coordinates research in northern Canada. We operate the Canadian High Arctic Research Station, and we're point of contact for circumpolar scientific cooperation in both the Arctic and Antarctic. So, Canada participates and is a member of many international polar science and operational organizations, FARO and COMAP, IASC and SCAR, Arctic Council, UArctic, and so on. Just briefly on the Antarctic, our programs, we have a very active science program, but it operates in partnership and through collaboration using the logistics and infrastructure of other countries. But I'll focus most of my remarks on the Arctic because that's where the majority of Canadian activity is focused. And that includes our welcoming openness to collaboration with partners from around the world. Canadian Arctic is huge, spans 5 time zones, east to west, and even just the Inuit homelands alone, Inuit Nunavut, is nearly 4 million square kilometers. So it's a large operational area. And really the topic of this session is enabling science through expert logistics. And that's something that is complicated over a large area, but we facilitate that in a number of ways. Since 1958, we have an organization called Polar Continental Shelf that provides the logistics and coordination capacity to operate across northern Canada. We have a Canadian network of northern research operators, which is sort of like Interact. There's over 40 research facilities that are operated by different governments or educational post-secondary institutions or communities across northern Canada, and most of those are accessible to anyone who would like to work there. And of course, there's organizations and agencies that operate icebreakers and satellites and other assets. But really, research operations in the Canadian Arctic require and benefit from collaboration with communities. And we already knew this, and over the years, I think increasingly research has benefited from those collaborations. But the COVID pandemic really highlighted and underscored the importance of these partnerships, our ability to maintain observations and continue research and conduct research in the Arctic in collaboration with communities. And there's several benefits to that that we're continuing to invest in. One is sustaining year-round observations and long-term monitoring. Working with communities, and we've heard this several times over the last couple of days, is absolutely key. And it allows us to harness local and indigenous knowledge. And in particular, that's valuable for field site selection at the beginning of a new project. It also accelerates the adoption of new technologies and innovation of new technologies, drones, eDNA, using EVs and other cold climate technologies, clean energy options and solutions. Those are important for research stations. They're even more important for communities in the Arctic, and it allows us to test a lot of different ideas. And people in communities have mechanical skills and are very adept at adapting some of these new technologies to cold climates. If my Skidoo breaks down, any 12-year-old in town can fix it much better than I can. It also reduces operating costs and increased safety because we're able to work with people that know the land, they know the community, and they also are there already. So it reduces a lot of additional costs. And then finally, it's a legal requirement. Inuit and First Nations are rights holders in the Canadian Arctic, and so we need to find ways to work with them. And again, this is something we've been doing an awful lot of. ArcticNet, for the last 20 years, has funding programs and Inuit advisors that support the development and co-development of research activities. The new Canada Inuit Nunavut UK CNUC program over the next 3 years was co-developed with Inuit. And those are just some of the examples of ways that I think from our perspective, we're able to support science in the north more sustainably in partnership with communities and indigenous peoples that are there already. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Antje, do you want to add something? Because Antje is one of our panelists, but we didn't have enough chairs.
Come here.
Yes, infrastructures, lack of infrastructures.
Shortcoming.
I was about to make a bad joke for Germany sitting on the lap of Canada, but I quickly swallowed my tongue. Yeah, thank you very much for this moment. I mean, all the points I can just reinforce. As you know, Germany hosts a number of stations on land and the sea. Polarstern, a very old icebreaker, 42 years. That is very fossil. I was actually in panic when we tried to film and photograph the black dust spreading over the North Pole when we did our long-term observations there. And so this dichotomy of, wanting to do the best, but being challenged by our scientific observation of our own traces, that hurts everyone today, and it creates a lot of uncomfortable discussions, especially also with the young generation, on all elements of, how can we balance the need for more science and also decrease the footprint. However, I would like to say a very honest word. We, the AVI, and I don't know about your institutions, we are under attack by, as we know from investigative journalism, people who are paid by oil industry to raise this aggression about the footprint and try to silence science and try to actually divide the public. So we have to be clear that while we do the best, all scientific institutions are engaged in doing the best for doing a sustainable science. The answer is not ending science, and you will know there is a really sharp and harsh discussion, and we all have to find out where it's coming from. What the world does not need is a silenced science, and it does not need less observation, for sure. And so be careful in your way, that's what we think, in our way to engage and to discuss with governments. Let's be better. That comes on many, many actions. Jennifer has mentioned, we still, when we're honest, we have not solved the best cooperation between young and old, female and men, diverse people, where we have not even talked about the issue with neurodiversity on our extreme polar expeditions. Do we exclude? Do we welcome? How do we deal with that? So many of these elements of how can humans act and work and be safe are important in a growing stress from society. So we have to answer that sometimes by just having more personnel. And the honest answer is, when we have to do that, it's always on the cost of jobs for young scientists. And that really is painful. So engaging for a better funding is very, very much needed. And that's why it's good that we have this operators talk here. And I have learned in my past, or in my 7 years now as director, that it is better to be open and direct and not hide any of these problems we have to deal with, because we will find solution only by open and transparent discussion. And so I thank you all, and I would like to highlight again that some of us are in a special situation, because there is the next frontier is doing the best observations in the field together with people who are living there, and even getting the right language to deal with our colonial past, that many of the ones having the infrastructure. So you see so many levels of complexity, but we will produce better science if we can deal with all of them. But we need everyone's understanding and help on the path. And so just one more word that I wanted to say about energy transformation. So we are trying really hard on all levels. But in the recent effort to have a windmill at Neumeier and to do everything, we also have to make hard decisions for the safety of people. And as long as there is no other energy solution, Jane has said that very clearly, we cannot step out of fossil fuel, we just can't. And so the honest discussion of that, the transparency that the institutions need to have, but also the understanding that we do not need less science in polar regions, that was my short comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you. So we know we're running late, but we want to open a bit the floor for maybe 1-2 questions. Yep. Down there and one there. Okay.
Thank you. So my name is Seras. I went over on 3 different stations in Antarctica for the French and the Italians, and also for the United States of America at the South Pole Station last year for the Ice Cube Neutrino project. I would love to thank the women from the AAD for having opened the subject of sexual harassment and sexual violences in Antarctica. I think I've seen about 8 or 9 stations in Antarctica and subantarctic regions, and the subject is everywhere for every nation. It's a big subject now on American stations. It should be a big subject on every station, technically, because it exists everywhere. The Russians find a way to do it in another way, like they ban women from Vostok station to winter over. That's a very bad solution to me. So I wonder how can we welcome better women on station when we are not doing enough sometimes on our station to protect them. So because we want more women in science, so I think we should send a big signal to predators and to protect better our women in science and our minorities. So I also want to thank the BAS, the British Antarctic Survey, for opening every year the discussion about the Polar Pride Day, that I've been able to launch the first Polar Pride last year at the US station. Thanks, by the way, for letting me doing that. I want to say that the National Science Foundation has been a huge support for diversity in the LGBTQA+ community, so thanks a lot. So thank you for opening those subjects, because those people on site are not just scientists and technicals, they are people of a huge variety of diversities, of color, of gender, of sexual differences, and thank you for supporting them and to protect them too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for raising that point. I think that this is a very important point. I think that now in both at the Antarctic Treaty System and at, for instance, institutions as COMAP, I guess other institutions do it, we are very aware of that. And we are organizing a lot of efforts, working groups, and a lot of points of contact, national points of contact on that. So we are working seriously, and we are really taking that in a very relevant way. So at this moment, we have, for instance, in COMNA, we have a working group led by USA on that, and we are working very hard. One of the points that just being transparent, one of the real problematic points is how to deal with the legislation when you are visiting another station and you have some kind of harassment. Because under legal position in Antarctica, this is very difficult. And this is something that we are finding, that there is a kind of problem, these kind of problems of EDI when you are outside your station, your national station. And we are working on it, and we have a legal group also thinking about that and trying to get a solution. But I can tell you, it is not easy, because we have a jurisdiction problem. So this is something really serious.
Hi, this is Laura De Santis from the National Institute of Oceanography and Applied Geophysics in Italy. And my question is from a scientist point of view for you. So if you are thinking about a way how scientists can get together and actually mature an idea to develop together, for example, during a ramping up phase of the International Polar Year, and finally get to the International Polar Year with an international project in a way that we can actually have access to infrastructures and funding together in the same time, focused on the same idea. Because, you know, now one of the difficulty we have is that each national agencies, they have their own code, their own funds, they're different time frame. The infrastructure can be available one time and not another time. So it's really difficult for us, even though we have a good idea and we want to work together, transdisciplinary, using a bunch of infrastructure available. That's very difficult for us. So maybe the International Polar Year can be a good chance for you, for all of us, to find the best way to vehicle these ideas, like, I don't know, expression of interest, something like that.
Yeah, Laura, this is an excellent point. And there are several larger initiatives underway. I think everyone realizes more and more that by international alliances and programming together, you can make science considerably better. And so just to mention a few, we have expeditions like Tara, Mosaic and others where the house is open for international collaborators, but it's not enough. There are new ideas out there both for the Arctic and the Antarctic, and I can mention that most likely on Friday there is the announcement of the big program Antarctica in Sync for contribution of the UN Ocean Decade, that we really try to use COMAP to have all infrastructure operators to help science to seamlessly work on joint synchronous observation means around the Southern Ocean. Of course, there is no international body that funds that, so it depends on getting together national funding agencies, having that trust in their own scientists by their own working groups to determine what needs to be done and where. But it looks very good that this is coming up, and then Canada works with a number of countries on an equally large Arctic mission to areas that have very little observation out in the ocean. So I think this is a new movement that will help us overcome a time when it feels that we're all under geopolitical stress. So thank you for bringing this up.
Carlo, just
a quick comment. Thanks, Laura. That's a good question. I think that there are tools for that within the EU PolarNet, coordination and support action of the funded by the European Commission. We had two things. The first one was a call for interest that was launched. Actually, there were three that were launched for a future ideas and project. We put money for that, so it was a good point, a good place to gather and to bring ideas in. And very recently there was the prioritization exercise within the EU PolarNet, again to put together a bottom-up approach, ideas for future call of the European Commission, which is not per se a project, finalizing a project, but is to have new ideas in the field. And also I would say that at the national level, since we are sharing the same facilities and so on, we within the national program for Arctic research, there is a big ICARP for designing the new Arctic research for the future, and we are supporting calls for ideas in one of the next calls. So I think we can do more, but of course this is a starting point. Sorry.
I think we are running out of time, and I want to explain that Jan and I are expected in the next session to present to the ministers, so we can't go over because we have to run over there. But so I think we have to stop with the questions for now, but I think we could all talk about this, and I apologize, I know Gerlis wanted to make a comment. We could all talk about many of these things much longer. We want to thank you all, and I also have a special request. If anyone happened to take a photo from in the room while we had the station on live, if you could share that, they would really appreciate it, because they were asking to share with their families that they had this exchange. So if anyone has that, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.